It was supposed to be a quiet weekend at the lake, you know. Just me, a book, some beer, and the kind of silence you don't get in the city anymore. But instead, I found myself standing in the middle of my own living room soaked in rain, holding a broken door frame in one hand while Karen, the self-proclaimed president of the HOA, screamed at me like I was the trespasser. Yeah, that happened. She had broken into my cabin, rearranged my furniture, thrown out half my stuff and was now threatening to call the cops on me for breaking into HOA property. Let me back up a sec. About 8 months ago, my dad passed away and left me this cabin up in Pinebrook, quiet little mountain community, mostly vacation homes, a few year-round folks. My parents bought it before I was born, long before Pinebrook got swallowed up by this overreaching HOA with a rulebook thicker than the Bible. The place was technically within their jurisdiction now, but my dad had opted out decades ago, and his exemption was legally recorded. That didn't stop Karen. Now, Karen, she's the kind of person who prints her title on coffee mugs. She wears her HOA president badge like it's a sheriff's star, struts around the neighborhood in her golf cart like she's patrolling the border. She's got that voice that cuts through walls, shrill, entitled, always 2 seconds away from calling her lawyer. The first time I met her, she told me the cabin looked unkempt and wasn't up to community standards. I told her it wasn't part of the HOA, and she gave me this tight little smile like I just challenged her to a duel. It didn't take long for things to escalate. Within a month, I'd gotten 3 courtesy notices. On my door, the paint color violated the aesthetic guidelines, my firewood stack was excessive, and apparently my wind chimes were a noise disturbance. Again, not part of the HOA. I ignored them. Then came the warning letters. Legally laced garbage demanding compliance and threatening fines. I responded politely at first, reminding them of the exemption, attaching the relevant documents. Got no reply. Just more letters, now with red stamps and ominous phrases like escalation of enforcement. That's when I knew this wasn't about rules. This was about power. So I stopped being polite. I hired a lawyer to recertify the exemption and send a cease and desist. We never got a response, but the letter stopped for a while. Then, about 2 weeks ago, I drove up to the cabin and found my locks changed. No warning, no explanation. Just a bright orange sticker on the door that said, HOA secured property trespassers will be prosecuted. I thought it was a prank. I broke in through the back, and what I found inside wasn't just insulting, it was infuriating. My dad's recliner was gone. Family photos. Replaced with generic prints of birds and pine cones. The old Navajo rug my mom bought in Santa Fe gone. There were candles on the table, HOA brochures neatly stacked in a wicker basket by the door, and I kid you not, a framed welcome sign that said, "This home proudly complies with Pinebrook HOA standards." I stood there in stunned silence until I heard the golf cart. Karen walked in like she owned the place, keys in one hand and a smug little smirk on her face. "Oh," she said, "I didn't realize anyone would be here this weekend." I told her calmly at first that she had exactly 10 seconds to explain why she was in my home. She tilted her head, gave me that condescending tone only HOA presidents and DMV workers can truly master, and said, "This property is under HOA jurisdiction now. You were notified. Your non-compliance made it necessary for us to assume stewardship." Stewardship. I laughed. I mean, it wasn't funny, but it was either that or punch a hole in the wall. I told her she was trespassing, that I had legal documentation proving my exemption, that everything she'd done, the lock change, the removal of property, was not only illegal, it was burglary. She didn't flinch. She said, "I have the authority to protect community values. This cabin was an eyesore." Then she called the police. She actually called 911 and said a dangerous man was in her property. So there I was, explaining to 2 very confused deputies that this was my house, that she had broken in, that she had removed personal belongings. Thankfully, I'd brought a copy of the exemption paperwork. One of the officers actually looked over at Karen and said, "Ma'am, you can't just change locks on private homes." She sputtered something about emergency community action and abandoned property, but they weren't buying it. Eventually, the cops told her to leave. But before she did, she turned to me and said, "This isn't over." And the way she said it, like she genuinely believed she was in the right. Like I was the villain in her little drama about neighborhood harmony and flower beds. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how close I'd come to being arrested in my own house. How she'd stripped away my family's history and replaced it with that fake, plastic HOA aesthetic, like my memories didn't matter. I decided right then that I wasn't just going to stop her, I was going to expose her. Over the next week, I dug. Turns out Karen had a long history of enforcement overreach, citations against properties never technically under HOA control, fines levied against residents for made-up infractions, even a couple of quiet settlements paid out to folks who'd lawyered up. But here's the kicker: she wasn't just power-hungry, she was profiting. A private contractor she used for compliance remodels. Her brother-in-law. The landscaping company that corrected violations. Her husband's. She was turning enforcement into income. So I sent everything to the county DA: documents, invoices, witness statements from a couple of brave neighbors. And then I posted the story on the community's Facebook group. I didn't have to embellish. I just laid it out, what she'd done, what I'd found, and what I was doing about it. It exploded. Within 24 hours, she was suspended. Within a week, the HOA board was under review. Turns out I wasn't the only one. 6 other residents had been quietly bullied or fined into submission, but now they had receipts. The state HOA regulatory body launched an inquiry. Karen resigned, which is rich, considering she never really had any authority over my cabin in the first place. And me. I repainted the cabin bright teal, just to make a point. Put my dad's recliner back where it belongs, hung up every single photo Karen took down. I even added a new sign out front: "This home proudly resists HOA tyranny." Some folks call me petty. Maybe I am. But sometimes petty is just justice with better taste in paint. So now I've got my cabin back, my neighbors have their voice, and Karen's probably learning the hard way that power doesn't mean immunity. Still, I think about what almost happened, how easy it was for her to twist things, how close I came to being branded the bad guy in my own story. You ever had to fight for something that was already yours? Yeah, then you know. So here's my question to you: what would you have done? Was I right to dig in and make it public, or should I have taken the high road and let the lawyers handle it behind closed doors? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious where folks stand when community power crosses the line into personal control.